Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday because it's about family, food, and football, but this week is also unique because it's also the week that we are fighting for playoff seeding right now. So our running back rankings this week, they gotta be correct, and I'm giving away 5 free FFN hats for when I hit 19,000 subscribers, and the way to qualify to get one is to go down there and drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and give me your hottest take for Week 13 fantasy football. So getting into our first tier right here, I've got Joe Mixon at 1 and Jahmyr Gibbs at number 2. With Joe Mixon, he's just got the matchup here. You know, last week was such an outlier with Joe Mixon. Like, he was like so inefficient on the ground versus a team that he should have he had no business being that bad. But he actually was. I don't really think too much of this one, to be honest with you, because with Joe Mixon, like, you take out that one game and the week 2 game that he got injured in early, like, he's been averaging 20 plus fantasy points per game. He's going to be fine. He'll rebound against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then Jahmyr Gibbs versus Chicago. This is a Thanksgiving game. Chicago has actually been really good defensively all year, but their weakness has been on the ground. They just got ripped apart by Aaron Jones on the ground. Jahmyr Gibbs, with an injured but probably playing Dave Montgomery, is going to rip them apart because Gibbs has been nothing but consistent with high upside. I like him a lot on Thanksgiving game. And Saquon Barkley at number 3 and Derrick Henry at number 4 are top two running backs right now, and they're taking on each other on Sunday. And you know what? Listen, this is a tough matchup for both of them. Like, both these run defenses are really good. That's why I've got them both ranked just a little bit lower, but since they're the top 2 backs in the league, they're not getting outside of the first tier. Saquon Barkley, I just kind of worry about what the effectiveness looked like, but at the same time, it's like this guy could easily just rip off 70, 80 plus yard runs at any given moment in time. So he can't be outside of tier 1. And then Derrick Henry had 140 yards on the ground versus the Chargers. A very good run defense. He just didn't get in the end zone, which was a rare week for him. So if he gets 100 yards, he's not going to miss the end zone this week. That does not happen. You can count on a touchdown this week from Derrick Henry. Now, dropping down to our next tier right here, I've got Kenneth Walker at number 5 and Bijan Robinson at number 6. I got the big week coming for Kenneth Walker this week. I think it's going to be a really good week for him. He's taking on the New York Jets, who are coming out of a bye. I don't care. The Jets not only are just disgraceful, they're coming off a bye with more drama potentially than they had before the bye week. Like, they cannot go a day without drama in that team. And this defense I've been discussing for months has been objectively bad since they fired Robert Saleh. And one of the weaknesses, although they have many, is against running backs in fantasy. Yeah, Kenneth Walker's going to have a big day on Sunday versus the Jets. And then we've got Bijan versus the Los Angeles Chargers. I would love to put him higher than Kenneth Walker. Ordinarily, he would be higher, but this is a tough matchup. The Los Angeles Chargers are tough against running backs, and the only one who's really crushed them was Derrick Henry last week. And even then, he wasn't getting in the end zone. Like, he had opportunities, he wasn't getting in the end zone. So with Bijan Robinson, he's going to have a tougher game. They're coming out of a bye week, so I like that. And Bijan Robinson has been so good, but there still is the Tyler Algier factor in there as well that you can't forget about. Devon Achane at 7 and Josh Jacobs at 8. Also, Thanksgiving night, I think that these two teams are going to be, I think that Green Bay is going to crush the Miami Dolphins. I think it's going to happen. I think that in this game, Josh Jacobs has a fantastic game again. Number 1, he's on a heater. The last month and a half, Josh Jacobs is running the ball super efficiently, and he's getting in the end zone. They want to run the ball first. They're turning into a run-first team. Now with the Miami Dolphins, obviously with Achane, he's uniquely insulated into his own category in Miami, because even if they come out and they lay an egg offensively, which I expect them to do because Tua is historically bad in cold weather, but these are minor details. Devon Achane, is insulated because of the fact that he just comes out and he does everything for them. He gets 52 yards from scrimmage last week, and he still gets in the end zone twice. Achane's upside is always there regardless of the opponent, and I think they're going to struggle this week, but Devon Achane and Josh Jacobs are both going to be great fantasy backs this week. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we've got James Cook at number 9, and we've got Chase Brown at number 10. Now, with James Cook, he's coming out of the bye week. He's taking on the 49ers, who defensively, they're actually good, but their weakness has been against running backs over the last month or so. Their team is having the season from hell. I'll continue to say this. And James Cook coming out of the bye week, I like that opportunity. Now, again, it always comes down to, with James Cook in particular, what are they going to give him workload-wise? Because there are certain weeks where they just don't give him much, and then there's other weeks where they lean on him heavy. So with James Cook, I like the opportunity, I like the matchup. That's why he's here at 9. With Chase Brown, I may be just finally ranking him where people think he should be ranked. I think there's a lot of people that have been really upset with my ranking of Chase Brown over the weeks, and it's like, guys, listen, I think he's a good player. But if you're looking at if you just look at him objectively, he's not a fantastic rusher. That's not his thing. He's more Austin Eckler than he is Derrick Henry. He's getting a lot of that work through the air, and Pittsburgh is a tough matchup for running backs. So again, it just comes down to what its target share is going to be like, but it's very, very consistent because that's a pass-first team by all metrics. So I think that Chase Brown, even against the tough Pittsburgh Steelers defense, going to have a good game. And then Kyren Williams at 11 and Alvin Kamara at 12 to round this out. Again, these two teams are playing each other. It's on Sunday. It's in New Orleans. I think that Kyren Williams actually has a good game. This will be his first, I think, really good game in a month. He has been seldomly in the end zone, and he has not been super great. He just hasn't been that great. He fumbled twice last Sunday night against the Philadelphia Eagles, but this is a much better matchup than what he's had over the past several weeks. With New Orleans, they've been really bad against running backs, and then Alvin Kamara versus the Los Angeles Rams. The one thing that keeps him down here is that it's not just one thing, it's been his collective production over the past month and a half. It's just gone downhill. Now, what if he comes out of the bye week and he's ready to go? I think that's very possible, but I still have my issues and my problems with Alvin Kamara because he just gets a little bit less efficient as the season goes on because he's almost 30 years old. One thing I have zero problem with and I'm actually really happy about is Patrick Mahomes' projection on Underdog this week. It's at 0.5 total yards on Underdog, so when you hit the higher, you're winning free money as a new customer. And if you want to take advantage of it on Thanksgiving week, go down in the comments and grab the link that's there and use code FFN to sign up for Underdog. When you hit the higher on the sweat-free pick with Pat Mahomes this week, they will match your first deposit 50% up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Now, going down to our next tier, I've got Breece Hall tentatively here at 13 and Montgomery here at 14 as well. So with Breece Hall, obviously, if you haven't seen the report, Breece Hall is deemed questionable already, right out of the gate this week, and reports actually are that his status is up in the air. So that's typically not a good sign this early in the week. So here's the deal. I like the matchup versus Seattle. We know that Breece can hit a ceiling. He just hit a ceiling game before the bye week that they just had. And so what it comes down to for me is this. If Breece plays, I don't think I like him as much as the guys in the next tier above him, but if he doesn't play, Braylon Allen being in this tier as well. I think Braylon Allen probably goes somewhere in the next tier that we're going to go through below. And then Dave Montgomery, obviously he's going to play. He's going to play. He said he could have came back and played versus the Indianapolis Colts last week. So he takes on the Bears. Again, awesome matchup for running backs here. And I just think that, the way the Lions are playing, they're rolling everybody, man. And he's a lock for a touchdown every single week. Dave Montgomery outside of the top 15 is that's a foreign thought to me, honestly, right now. It's I don't see how that's possible. So with Dave Montgomery, all we need is for him to get 15 touches. He's going to be just fine this week. And then Chuba Hubbard is still ranked over Christian McCaffrey. Cope with it. Christian McCaffrey has not been very good, while Chuba Hubbard continues to excel past everybody's expectations, except for mine, but those are minor details because I had this guy as a league winner before the season started. Chuba Hubbard versus the Tampa Bay Bucks, the matchup is awesome. I love the matchup already. And if one thing was made clear last week, it's that Jonathan Brooks is not a threat. It's not a threat. He wasn't even good on his touches last week, whereas Chuba Hubbard got in the end zone against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now he gets a break in the matchup. Yeah, Chuba Hubbard's a better fantasy back right now than Christian McCaffrey is, and McCaffrey's not bad. He's just not been as great. Now, obviously, his floor is pretty safe. Outside of the week, obviously, last week where they had no Brock Purdy, his floor has been really safe because of the receiving upside. Now, Brock Purdy, I've read mixed reports. One report I'll read is oh yeah, they're feeling good about it. The next report I read is yeah, they don't know where his status is. It's if we can get some clarity here, that would be awesome. Because right now, if Christian McCaffrey doesn't have Brock Purdy against the Bills, I don't like the matchup already, but I like it even worse without Brock Purdy. So he's here at 16 for now. Dropping down to our next tier. And again, this is where Braylon Allen would fall if he starts with the Jets. Tyrone Tracy at 17 and Jonathan Taylor at 18. With Tyrone Tracy on Thanksgiving Day at the Dallas Cowboys, I think Tyrone Tracy has a good game. Now, I said it last week against the Bucs because it was a good matchup. They look like they're about to start Drew Lock, which is an automatic upgrade for that team. It's so stupid why they didn't do it in the first place. And the Cowboys have been brutal against running backs. Brutal in their way. Not brutal against running backs. Great for running backs. I think Tyrone Tracy Jr., just the way that he has played, he has been so efficient, averaging more than 5 yards per carry all year. And he was their lone bright spot last week. So I just think that he is in line for a good game again. And then with Jonathan Taylor at New England, matchup is great. I feel much better about Taylor this week than I have the past 2 weeks. Because again, one thing is clear. Anthony Richardson will take away rushing touchdowns at the goal line. And so if he doesn't have a great matchup and he's not running efficiently, he's not going to have much upside. But this week is different. New England is definitely beatable on the ground. And I think Jonathan Taylor can break off a big run or two. So his ceiling is still definitely lower because he needs to run and break off touchdown runs on big plays. But right now, I think Jonathan Taylor's floor this week is going to be higher than it was last week. Bucky Irving at 19 and Aaron Jones at 20. You watch how many people are going to say I'm too low on Bucky Irving. I get the fascination. He's been better, and I've been saying this all year. I'm not the biggest Rachaad White guy. I've been saying it all year. Bucky is the better running back, but you can't just overrank this guy just because he's better than him. They're still going to have Rachaad White involved. He will still have a role. It's against Carolina. I love the matchup. Bucky is the better runner. And it wouldn't surprise me if they go from more 50-50 to 55-45 or 60-40 split. But Rachaad White is still going to take volume. So Bucky, yes, good player. I want him this week. But we can't just overrank this guy just because we think that he deserves it. And then Aaron Jones at 20. Versus the Arizona Cardinals, this matchup is iffy. And he ended up doing pretty well last week against Chicago Bears. And I think that ultimately what it comes down to with Aaron Jones is, do they get Cam Akers involved again? Because last week he looked healthy. And I don't know if he, injured himself again. I don't know if they're going to do load management this week. I don't know what it is, but Aaron Jones still doesn't feel super steady to me. This is more of a gut feeling than anything else. Arizona is also very, very unpredictable on a weekly basis. Their defense is pretty good. And when you factor in that Aaron Jones, his workload is unstable, I've got him down here at 20 for a reason. Now, dropping down to our next tier, Isaiah Pacheco at 21 and Rico Dowdle at 22. Pacheco plays the Las Vegas Raiders on Black Friday. Now, the matchup couldn't be much better. It's a great matchup. And even Antonio Pierce admitted it to everybody. He said, it's the best team in the league versus the worst team. He knows it's a great matchup for Kansas City. Ultimately, what it comes down to is Pacheco should be back. He practiced in full. But obviously, he's not going to take the full 100% workload. Kareem Hunt still will have involvement. Now, Pacheco, I do like him better than Hunt because Hunt has been inefficient the past month or so. But I do think that you can't just start ranking Isaiah Pacheco back inside the top 15 already. And then we've got Rico Dowdle here at 22 versus the Giants. Again, Thanksgiving matchup. I like the matchup a ton. This is a matchup that Rico Dowdle should be able to take advantage of. Not only because the Giants stink versus running backs, but it's also because with the Cowboys, they actually have a really good shot at leading the majority of this game. So Rico Dowdle should get opportunities. I can't rank him much higher because of the fact that Dallas and Mike McCarthy particularly likes to stray away from the run. Now going down to 23 and 24, Ramondre Stevenson, Tony Pollard. Ramondre Stevenson, I feel vindicated, but it's not because I don't like Ramondre. Don't mistake me always having Ramondre ranked this low because I don't like him. I do like the player. He's taking on the Colts this week, and I do like that matchup. But ultimately, guys, just say it out loud and set yourself free. The New England Patriots offense sucks. It sucks. So there will be games like last week where Ramondre does nothing against the Miami Dolphins of all teams. It's very possible he does it again. But I also do like the matchup again this week, so I do think that there's always a possibility that he has a 20-point game. And then with Tony Pollard here versus Washington, people will be upset about this because of Pollard and what he did last week. But remember, Tyjae Spears is probably going to come back this week. Now, the matchup is awesome. There's no debating that. I'm not debating anybody about the matchup. What I'm trying to tell you is that with Tony Pollard, if Tyjae Spears plays, you can expect him to get no more than like 12 to 15 touches. And unless he's handling the full workload, he's not going to be a great fantasy running back because he can't establish a rhythm, and it's been proven all year with Tyjae Spears. The game splits and the points per game with Tyjae Spears and without him, they're so drastically different, and it's time to open up to that idea and that whole reality because Tony Pollard is a good running back without Tyjae Spears in fantasy, but he's not as good with Tyjae Spears. And then we've got Jeremy McNichols at 25 and James Conner at 26. Jeremy McNichols, man, getting the start for Washington this week. Probably. By all accounts, he's been the one who's been active. And Chris Rodriguez, I'm sure, will have a role. I will say that. Versus Tennessee, the matchup, theoretically, should be really good. I will say this. Number one, Tennessee just shut down Joe Mixon. I've been saying all year, I think their defense is actually pretty good. But the problem with Tennessee is that they can't usually score points. If they can score points against the Washington Commanders, it changes the whole game. But right now, that's why I have Jeremy McNichols down here. Because Washington is kind of in a tailspin offensively right now. And at the same time, Tennessee showed some signs of life coming out of the bye week. So I think Jeremy McNichols will be the best running back in Washington, but I don't think that he's some excellent play this week. And then with James Conner at the Minnesota Vikings here, you just can't rank him much higher. I mean, it's an unfortunate reality that James Conner is getting less efficient, and one of two things usually happens, right? Either he becomes less efficient or he becomes injured at the latter part of the season. Trey Benson is looking better than James Conner. Do I think Trey Benson's taking over? Of course not. That's why I have James Conner still ranked at number 26. And not Trey Benson. But I do think that James Conner will continue to get volume usurped from him by Trey Benson. Now, dropping down to our last tier, DeAndre Swift at 27 and Rachaad White at 28. With Swift on Thanksgiving at the Detroit Lions. This is not a good matchup here. I get it. It's a revenge game narrative. Former team, yada, yada, yada. Detroit is smothering people, man. And Swift, 2 weeks now without Shane Waldron at offensive coordinator, he's actually done worse in fantasy. Like, he was the only one who benefited from Shane Waldron at offensive coordinator in Chicago. It's hilarious. And now that he's gone, he's just been kind of mid. And this matchup is so disgusting. He will not have open avenues to run. The only thing that'll save his bacon this week is if he gets some targets, which he always does. But at the same time, it's not going to be enough to move the needle against a smothering Detroit Lions defense. And then Rachaad White at Carolina. Like I said, the matchup is awesome. But here's just the reality, man. They've had good matchups all year. And Rachaad White just continues to prove again over time that he's not a very good running back. Like, as far as efficiency goes on the ground, Bucky Irving is much better, as I've been saying for the whole year. Now, however, he will have receiving upside. Last week he didn't particularly. I think this week he probably will. I can't imagine they're just going to not use him at all this week. I think Rachaad White will still have a role, and against the Panthers, he should be efficient enough to get a top 30 finish in. And then Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren at 29 and 30. With Najee and Jaylen, they're both in the same boat. Najee will handle the majority of the work, but Jaylen will handle just enough to be a little bit better potentially. That's why they're going to be back-to-back ranked for the foreseeable future. Warren, the only reason Najee has had really good games is because Warren's missed a bunch of the season. Last week versus the Browns, you saw it from last year come back this year. Versus the Browns last week, Warren got 11 touches to Najee's 17 touches, I think, that he had, and he was better in fantasy because he's the more efficient player. Najee will be the ground and pound guy, but I don't ultimately think that they're going to have an opportunity to run the ball a ton. Like, they will, of course, find ways to run, but this will be a Bengals type of game where they will put up points on the Steelers defense because they do it against everybody. So I ultimately just don't have tons of confidence in either Steelers running back this week. And at this point moving forward, they're both kind of just low-end RB2s / mid-end RB3s. So let me know how your team looks this week. And if you want to see the top 12 defense rankings for this week, click on this video right here.